Hey everyone, today I wanted to share with you an experience that I just had recently around coming to an understanding of the illusions of the mind. Okay, lots of people say, in spiritual text, everything is an illusion. They talk about illusion in so many ways, but I think it's really hard for some people to understand what that actually means. Someone might say, the trauma that you experience is actually an illusion of the mind, and people can go, whoa, hang on, are you saying that didn't happen? No, that's not the case. So I wanted to explain to you how I found an illusion of my mind, and I guess the processes that went through to give you an understanding of how it could then relate to you and how your mind creates particular illusions. Okay, so first I want to introduce you to a beautiful book that I have here. I don't know if that comes up in the way that it comes up here, but it's a Course in Miracles. This is a beautiful book. Now, in saying it's a book, it's actually it's 7 years of channeling from a particular entity, which I believe is very closely aligned to Christ consciousness. So the words in it are so perfectly aligned that each word and each sentence and each paragraph is a spiritual lesson just within itself. So it's absolutely a beautiful book to read, and there's something that I just wanted to read to you initially, and it's just in the preface, and then I'll explain, and I'm going to use this to actually base what my understanding of illusions of the mind are. Page 10, it says that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Here lies the peace of God. And it's really powerful. It's only 3 lines. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. And this is where we're starting to move into. Okay, so nothing unreal exists. That's what illusions are. They are unreal, and they don't actually exist other than being a construct of the mind. Herein lies the peace of God, and that's P-E-A-C-E of God. So really, really powerful book, really, really powerful teachings. It's been described as spiritual psychotherapy. So anyone who's got it, you'll understand what I'm saying. Anyone who doesn't have it, I would suggest get yourself a copy, because beautiful. So what do you mean by illusions of the mind, Maurice? Okay, so I'm going to talk you through an experience that I had just recently. This was only actually the other day. A good mate of mine put up a photo and tagged me into it. And it was a photo from 1996. And it was a 10-year school reunion that we had. And it was a picture of me. And we were in a nightclub, and there was me and a couple of other guys around, but I seemed to be the main picture of this, or main focus of this one, and obviously he's tagged me into it. And it's got a picture of me, and I've got a drink in my hand, and I'm making a bit of a funny face there, and there's a good mate of mine standing next to me, and he's also, I think we were both intoxicated at the time. It looks like we were having a great time. So he's tagged me into it, and it's interesting because you can put, when people tag you into things, you can approve it to be put on your timeline. It was interesting that I chose not to have it on my timeline. And so it was interesting. So once again here, mindfulness, I'm being aware of what's arising within me. This is interesting, Maurice. Why don't you putting it on your timeline, there's nothing really in it that I wouldn't want to necessarily share, but what I did know is this presence of something arising within me, and I felt embarrassment, I felt guilt, I felt shame. There was thoughts then associated to that, so I thought, wow, this is significant. Let's sit with this. So here's some shadow work that's coming available to me. Here's noticing moving closer to inquiring into, okay, using the prefrontal cortex, tapping into the emotions, but then also tapping into the emotions and thinking about what was the thought that preceded the emotion as well. So the emotions were guilt, embarrassment, even shame, all right? So they were the emotions. The thoughts that preceded those emotions were, I'm not proud of myself. Some of the things that I did when around that age, in essence, I regret. If only people knew who you were then, how, you really haven't changed. So it was really interesting, these series of thoughts that were tapping, preceding these emotions. And for some of you, you may have seen the emotional guidance system video that I did. I think I titled it, "Can You Trust Your Emotions?" So I might put a link of that into this feed as well. And I'll put a picture of what it is up as well. So it's quite benign. So, your emotional guidance system is letting you know that, whenever you feel a negative emotion, it's your inner self letting you know that you are believing an untruth of the mind. So when you notice your negative emotion, then you go, this is really interesting. It's my inner guidance system, or my inner self letting you know, hey, Maurice, you're believing an untruth of the mind. That's where the illusion starts. I'm tapping into a thought, a script, and now I've got an emotion. Now the emotion normally would go, oh, I've got an emotion, that thought must be truth. And then we then feel even further, and we create further emotions, further thoughts, further emotions. We have this cycle. Whereas what I'm suggesting is that you have negative emotions because there's a mistruth of the mind that you're believing, and you can use your negative emotions as an indicator and go, this is really interesting. What is the thought that preceded this, and how is this untrue? I can then look at the thought and I go, wow, what is the truth about this? What would be the opposite of it? Okay. So basically, when coming to an understanding of this, I was then talking to a good mate of mine. I said, oh, look, this stuff's coming up for me. And my mate goes, well, who's the other dude in the picture with you? And I said, oh, his name's Chook, he was a good mate, And my mate said, well, how do you look at him? And I said, look, he was just a free spirit enjoying his life. Going, oh, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Because the way I was judging myself, I wasn't judging him, and he was in the same picture doing the same stuff as me. Could I look at myself in the way that I was looking at him? Could I release the judgment of myself and just see myself as a free spirit having a good time? Why would you want to judge that? You're not judging your mate, but yet you're judging yourself here. And in that moment, I came to the awareness of what I was doing. I had an attachment to the mind. I was believing an untruth of the mind, and I was attached to an illusion of the mind that I was unworthy, that I'm a bad person, that I'm a dark person, that I could never change, all that sort of stuff, and that I shouldn't have been doing all those things. See the illusion there? So in that moment, I then went, oh, cool. And so I was able to lessen the judgment and actually let it go, because I wasn't judging my mate. And I could then flip that around to me, create a new script, lessen the judgment, let it go, and then see then through the illusion that I had then created through my attachment of the mind. So in these moments, and they come very, very quickly, and I was really grateful for my friend who was then able to go, hey, let's look at it, this is what you do to me, let's look at it through that lens. And I was able to then come back to it and see it through the eyes of love. Okay. So when I talk about illusion, anything other than love is an illusion of the mind. It's a really beautiful way of looking at it, really, really powerful way of looking at it. Because then I can, whenever I'm noticing that I'm judging myself or judging others, I can catch myself out on that, being mindful. But then I can also then ask the question, how would love look at this? Because when I look at it from the perspective of love, and I mean unconditional love, I then start to see the truth. And the truth is that there is nothing other than love. Everything else is an illusion of the mind. The judgment that I have for others, the judgment that I have for myself would suggest that I am not love, that I am not loved by life, that I am not life. So, just a really, really powerful way of looking at it. And it's like a samurai sword, it just cuts through it and then it's gone. it just dissolves it through this love and compassion. And, it was such a liberating experience, an enlightening experience within a split second. So here I was going down the rabbit hole, following these thoughts, tapping into these emotions, thinking that the thoughts were truth because I was feeling the emotion, but then going, whoa, hang on, what's going on here? Now I noticed it, and that's when I then was, talking to my mate and said, hey, this is what's going on for me. And he said, come on, what's happening there? What is arising for you? How are you reading this? How are you judging it? How are you judging yourself? What about your mate? Are you judging him? No, I'm not. Oh, cool. Could I throw that back on myself? Yes, I could. Now I've come to the awakening. And see, the interesting thing here is that both the judgment that I had upon myself and then the forgiveness that I had upon myself, they were both part of the illusion, because there was nothing to forgive in essence. So both the judgment and the forgiveness were both part of the same illusion. But I needed to go through the experience so I could then understand that there was an illusion of the mind that I was then buying into. That is awakening. And as we have further and further awakenings to the illusions that we buy into, then each one of those awakenings is a path to enlightenment. And that's what enlightenment is. And the Buddha said, basically, if you want to let go of suffering, or through the process of enlightenment, you're enlightened when you have released all suffering. And the suffering is the psychological suffering that we create through the attachment to the mind, through the illusions that the mind creates. And remember, you are not your mind. Your mind's a part of you. You are consciousness having a wonderful human experience, if you allow it to be that. Cool. Thought I'd then share with you, but check that out if you get the opportunity to. Course in Miracles. Thanks, team. Bye-bye.